So women make up a large percentage of this group as well. So of that, 18 to 35, age demographic, they're making up a huge percent of those, off-course golfers, which is a huge potential for your AGAs, courses, clubs that could start with these social events and then really shift these players into your traditional events, tournaments, and just participation at the club. And a lot of this is what we're going to be talking about with our panelists here in a couple minutes. So this slide, just kind of notes the ramp of those golfers. Again, these social events, get players interested, get them involved with your AGAs, and once when they're started playing these events, this is again the ramp that we could take them from not involved, get them to these social events, and then get them to those traditional events here. And then lastly, a huge percentage of the golf economic impact revolves around travel. More opportunity with resorts for friends, families, along with the social element of golf, makes it less intimidating to be in that environment. I know all these guys here, their AGAs are, taking advantage of golf travel. So, really want to turn it over to our panelists now. We'll start, with our first questions of, to you guys, what kind of events are your AGAs using, for social off-course gatherings? So I'll turn it over to you guys.
Yeah, I can start. So we kind of have, I would say, like 4 categories with this. Specifically to off-course, this past winter was the first year that we got involved with the simulator golf. So we held 2 events at X Golf at the Brewers Stadium. They have a cool facility out in left field. The 2 events that we did are part of a summer-long series. One is just a 2-person scramble. The other is a net partners. So again, we just ran these as just an option in the winter time. Last year, like I said, was the first year we did it. We had great success with it, and we'll be doing it again this year. But again, this was just a really cool opportunity to kind of take these, summer events and how can we get players involved, in the winter, especially in Wisconsin. One of the other ones we do, which again, this is kind of more on course, but not your traditional 18 holes. We've been doing for now 6 years. We do a par 3, state par 3 championship, and we hold that at Sand Valley. They have a really cool par 3 course there, a little 17-hole course. So we've been doing that for the last few years. We sell it out every single year. Players just love it. It's really, we get your best players. I mean, we have people who play in our state am, will play in this par 3 tournament, and also your non-traditional golfers, will get them involved as well. The third thing we do, which we introduced a couple years ago, is we do a state putting championship as well. We hold this at another resort down on the south side of the state. And that's really where we see non-traditional golfers. We have a group of ladies that come up every single year. None of them play golf at all, but they love to play in the putting championship. And we kind of make that more of a fun environment. We have live music with a band, we have an open bar, lunch, all that. So it is really more of this casual, hey, if you mini putt, come out and do this. A lot of resorts have those 18-hole courses, or like they listed, some facilities like Pop Stroke that are specific to just putting that you could host it there. Then the final thing that we are doing, it's actually happening this weekend when we get back from this conference, and we heard the presentation yesterday, is we partnered with Upper Deck. That is going to be hosted also at the Brewers Stadium, like I said, this upcoming weekend. And just really interested to see how that's going to play out and what the turnout for that is. And on our end, we're really using that as a great way to partner with the Brewers in specific. And then also we're planning to be there with some of our signage. We'll put up a tent and a table, looking at passing out some discounted memberships, things like that, to just see what players we might be able to take from this who don't play any traditional golf, might not even know what the WSGA is, and see if we can get them as part of our association. So that's really the main ones from the WSGA that kind of fit into the topic for today.
And then from the Chicago District's perspective, about 7 years ago, we started embarking on what we call true social competitions. And it started out just with an event or two, and now fast forward here 7 years later, we're up to about 50 events when it's all said and done throughout the given year. And you throw in 2 winter series, one in the early winter and then one on the sort of tail end of the calendar year, if you will. And then you throw in other special events like Birdies in Baseball, where the Chicagoans, we took a group up to the club at Loch LaBelle and then took 40 people over to the Brewer Cub game. The Cubs won. But that was really, I was shocked at how popular that was, because we combined a lot of loves together and they actually traveled. So actually put 3 things together: the Cubs, baseball, and traveling together in a more regional perspective. The club at Loch LaBelle is also a parking partner, so it also helps strengthen that. Anytime you can bring fun competition, new business, new customers to any of these resorts that we deal with on a more regional basis. Being in Illinois, we have Tullymore, that's a big partner in Michigan. We've got Sand Valley up in Wisconsin. We have French Lick and Indiana. And the reason I point those out, they all speak eloquently up to our social competitions as the big prizes to shoot for. Why do I want to get with my buddies, go to a qualifier with the idea that I can go to the finals ultimately and win that opportunity? And we weren't quite sure, 6-7 years ago, putting this together, whether this would be just sort of a trend, a fad, here today, gone tomorrow kind of thing. These social competitions have grown in such a fashion that we now have to let people know where our server is located so that they understand when midnight happens on February 6th that they can start to sign up. About 90% of our competitions will be pretty much sold out, if not sold out, by the end of the day. That's how much demand is now built up. And it's been great. Our communication guys have had a good time, penning up that demand with the countdown, reminding everybody, because it's amazing once people have gravitated to these things and then they get shut out, the consternation on their faces is so bad because they know they're not going to be playing and they have to survive on being on the wait list. So it has come a long way in the 7 years for us. But you also mentioned travel. Travel has turned into a huge piece of business for us. Just this year, and our range of trips range anywhere from as low as 24 people up to as high as 60 that we took to Pebble Beach. I just returned from Bandon taking 40 CDGA members, but this year we've gone to the Dominican Republic, Pebble Beach, Sand Valley, French Lick, Scotland, Ireland, Arcadia Bluffs, Bandon, and Pinehurst. And all of them sold out with waiting lists. So if you're not traveling or you're traveling a little, you're missing the boat. These people, once you get that community, it's a community all in itself, and we have a gentleman, Andrew Luthane, in our group that handles all of this, and he quarterbacks a database that's incredible. Even if one spot comes up because somebody got sick, he can fill it just like that. Now that doesn't happen overnight, it's been years of doing this, but it speaks to having that database. When we started cultivating our social competition database over these years, when new initiatives, and I don't know, like for example, if anyone's talking to Dan Hirschberg at AGS, how do you get that partnership growing? Well, we use the database from all of these years of social competition, which is now well over 10, 12,000 names, and immediately it turned that partnership in uber successful, which obviously means more revenue inbound and more memberships for us. So it becomes self-feeding in a way to help drive other pillars and other divisions and departments of your association of where you want to grow. So we've taken a huge advantage of this widest band of the membership approach, and it's really paid off for us.
Yeah, I reiterate what Mike said. From the NCJ standpoint, we started our social programming 10 years ago with our travel program. That's where we saw significant interest, and I could just confirm on all the things he said as far as what we've seen with repeat members going on trips again and again and again, and many of them have now said that this is the only reason they keep their membership. They're over 65, 70, they're not playing in tournaments, they don't really have much need for their handicap index, but they always want to go on our trips. And as you said, Mike, the waiting lists get built out, people need to be on online, ready to go to sign up immediately. And because of that, we've actually gone to a lottery filling process where we're actually randomly selecting members to go because of the demand that we've had. But I think you also have to think about what would you define social programming as. We've gone through some different iterations. I think you shared about net competitions. Originally, we created our now weekend net tour as a social competitive program. Yes, we ran it by the rules, but it was much smaller than our normal tournaments and championships. We might have run them with 3 or 4 volunteers and 1 staff, but we would travel all over our region, and this program became so popular that we grew from 5 events to 20. Now we're doing 45. We've added a senior component where it's only during the week. We're delivering, in excess of 65 events annually, probably in the 4,500 players. Now, obviously, not every association has 180,000 members, and we're certainly fortunate to have that. So we're able to kind of invest in these different programs. But some other things that were shared, I think, we have tested out the Top Golf program with some success. I think if you're going to consider getting into that sort of program, you've got to be willing to invest. I don't think it's going to be a revenue program for an association, just the constraints that their corporate policy has, but I think it does, bear some fruit. We did, I think, 5 events. This year was our most successful when we said, hey, we're actually going to take a loss on these programs because we want to try and engage some new golfers. And we had a group of 6 12-year-olds who were on the same little golf team together up to people in their 70s. They said, hey, I want to check this out. It was a fantastic time, so I think that's something that is worth considering. And then even looking at women's program, we have about 75 women's social net competitions that we consider more on that social scale. They're not exactly tournaments, and the ladies love those. And we also have another program that I think is good to try to talk about when we get into the ladies slide is the Joy of Golf. We've added that and invested into bringing ladies out to a golf course a few times a year with possibly a keynote speaker. We do some lesson programs and clinics out there on the golf course, and we've had really nice success with that as well. On top of some of the things I think that Tom shared, like going to your local collegiate. We've done things in Stanford, gone to the football game, and we've gotten kind of our name out there, even though it wasn't really golf related. We did some pre-game golf elements. I think we had kind of a chipping competition and putting games before the game. And then, along those lines, we've done things with the San Francisco Giants, where we went to a game, we sold tickets to the members, we did, hitting balls off of the upper deck. So those are some of the things that you can kind of think about if you don't feel like we can really expose ourselves to a larger program like adding 20, social net tournaments or a large travel program.
And as a follow-up to you guys, for these events, especially the golf-specific ones, are you guys introducing, a scoring aspect of it, or are you keeping it, strictly casual, or mix of both?
Yeah, it's a mix of both. It really depends. For our trips, they're strictly casual. Most of who go on those want to, meet new people, play bucket list golf courses. My colleague here is, shaking his head. Yeah, well, we do some little one-day games, but they're not competitive. They're not by the rules. We trust everyone. They're taking gimmies. So I would throw that out when you're talking about travel. That one, the net competitions, and maybe Mike would speak to it as well, is I think people want to have the ability for an association who knows how to run events in a professional way to travel around their area. They don't know where to start. They go to the same golf course, every week, every month, and when you can add things like skins games that are paying them out in gift card money, and we have player of the year point systems that allows them to elevate through the progress of the season to go play nicer and nicer golf courses, they see those things as rewards. And even actually a newer program that we started is our virtual match play challenge. Again, that's probably more competitive, but almost all the rounds other than the finals are done virtually. So we're trusting the players to schedule their matches, find golf courses to play. We handle handicap issues and rulings via email or phone call. So that's another program that I think would be successful if you're not already doing that.
Yeah, and from our perspective, same way with the member trips, the one days, the weeks. It's play as you wish, and games are made up as such. When you get into the social competitions, very much they're electronically scored. Everything is in real time, and the players really like it because they will be at events where they'll have a few teams and they're all friends, and they'll have side bets amongst themselves, and some of these side bets get pretty high. I just learned. And Mike wants that room, right? Yeah, amateur status was violated a few times. But in all seriousness, yeah, they love being able to compete because, again, I go back to a lot of our newest members since COVID are former athletes that still like to compete. You know, they may have been a basketball player, a football player, a softball player, but they still in their DNA, they just got that drive. They want to be with friends. And what other sport can you play for the rest of your life than golf? And we're seeing more and more of that, and it's really been, you know, it's something to see. And the other thing that caught us off guard, you know, first and foremost, when, and I'm going to age myself, for those who were born, there was an Oldsmobile Scramble, okay? And for those who can remember, the reason it went downhill, everyone loved the event, but it was car dealers managing handicaps and stuff, so it lost its integrity quickly. So we used a reverse psychology. The first thing we brought back was the 4-person scramble because as a golf association, we could make sure that the handicaps were legit and we could see playing history and whatnot. And then we had them play literally in eightsomes, and we used the Florida step-aside format, and it was a tremendous hit because it's a type of 4-person scramble that nobody usually plays, and it makes you think a lot, and it involves everybody, and it's really fun when you get to play with another group. So right out of the box, we had credibility, and the events then were deemed to be fair and competitive, and they were without issue. And I think that's really important when you establish a social competition division, that there aren't gimme putts. We're still putting them out. We still have a rules official there, and we may have a lot of officials in training just to be there as props almost. Because again, most of these social players have never seen a rules official in their life, and they get so nervous when somebody comes rolling up. And of course, our rules officials are just ambassadors for the game. They're just there to be, you know, just to say hello, and it makes them all nervous. And it's kind of fun to see that piece of it. But the part that caught us off guard was the number of tournament players that were going to convert over to being social players. Everybody thought, oh, the tournament players won't have you know, any time for that. But it actually has turned into an opportunity for them, instead of being at each other's throats at every event, for the first time being able to say, well, let's put a super team together. I mean, we're the 4 best in the state. Let's go prove it out in a scramble, and let's win that state and play, you know, for 2 days, 2 nights, 3 rounds at Sand Valley. And what happens is, in each qualifier, you get a few super teams, and then at the finals, it's a shootout like nobody else is that you can see. I mean, it's a lot of fun. So the social player then loves to see the true, you know, champion players or championship caliber players come in because they're playing in their own flight. And that's the other piece of this that we did, is we flighted it so that everybody feels that it isn't skewed towards the low index or to the high index. And when we went into the simulators, we found out quickly that the outdoor handicap and an indoor simulator handicap do not correspond. And at X Golf specifically, you almost want to take about 55 or 60% of that outdoor handicap to match it up with the indoor. But that took us a couple of series to sort of learn that. And the other thing we do, and I would suggest everybody do, is survey, because that's how we got some of our best ideas as to where to go next and how to treat different things. And if there are, you know, an issue with one particular event, do we do this or do that? Put it in a survey, and you'll get your feedback. And it has been, and it's really cool when you make changes and the people that filled it out see the changes the next year. That's when you know you've got a raving fan, and that's what our social competitions have done for us at the CGA.
Yeah, the WSA, like I said, with those events that we run, kind of those alternative formats, we utilize Blue Belt for everything. So we do player registration for the X Golf days, for our par 3, for our putting championship. We utilize live scoring. We still hand out scorecards. You know, we create notice of player sheets. So again, these are just alternative formats that are not your standard 18 holes, you know, out on the course. But again, for X Golf, it was really nice for us. Our net partners day was, you know, a single day with our 2-person scramble, ended up being a month where they would have the entire month of March to find a date that worked best for them. So it was really nice for us. If we weren't there, we knew a time that a team was playing, we could track their live scoring and make sure everything was going well. So again, we utilize every feature we do for a normal championship, round for all these kind of alternative formats.
Awesome. So moving on, how have you guys engaged, those beginner golfers, casual golfers, specifically the juniors and young adults and women who make up a large portion, as we talked about earlier, of those like off-course, population?
I mean, I shared a couple things on the ladies side. I think we've got to figure out how to create new programs to engage women to get into the game. We're great with youth on course, and that started with the NCGA. I can actually just ask for a quick raise of hand if everyone is familiar with youth on course. If you have it, yeah. So one of the things that they're doing, they've now taken the next level to try and capture like the 18 to 25-year-olds and provide additional financial assistance, because we know when you get to college or you're starting your career, finances are tight. You don't have the ability to go out and play golf. So I think that's a nice addition if you don't already have that. I'm going to talk with some of our staff on youth on course, but I would encourage on the ladies program, find some events that are both competitive but also social in nature, which is what we do, because you'll get both. We have a lot of ladies that say, hey, I just want to go to meet friends and have a nice meal and enjoy my time. But others they're hardcore competitors. So when you kind of blend the two together, I think you're going to find better success than if you try to do one without the other. I'd probably let you guys talk on some of the young adult things, because actually at the NCGA, I think our philosophy is more, how do we create more member satisfaction with our current core of members, more so than how do we continue to keep looking for new members. We want new members, absolutely, but if we are making sure that our current members are enjoying their membership and the programs that we have, we know that they're going to be the best advocates, and I've seen that in a lot of our social programs. They tell their friends, I'll ask them, we'll survey, like Mike said, have you ever played an event before? I said, no, this is my first one. Why did you play? Well, my friend said, your trips are great, that's why we do that. Or your weekend net tour is fantastic. Or even our member outings, what we call them, you guys might call them play days or open days at private clubs. Those are social for us as well. We don't have a competitive element. So all those things I think can play into your program.
And as far as some of the female side of it, you had said, wait a minute, say again, the female you had,
The program that we use?
yeah.
Oh, we started something called the Joy of Golf, and it was really like a lecture series with clinics, some meals, and I think we had like 120 ladies come out last year. They loved it, and we continue to promote that. Is that what you're
Yeah, so to that point, we also surveyed, and we found out a lot when we tried to mix, for example, the social competitions to put the men and the women together on the same day, even though they might have a different set of tee times and all the rest of it. But what we found out is that the women don't even like to be there with the men at all. Not even that day. So we accidentally stumbled upon this realization because we scheduled the finals on the day of the big state women's event, and they basically said there's no way we're going to try to qualify if we know that there's a conflict at the finals. So that forced us to break apart all the qualifiers, and guess what happened? They were packed because there weren't any men there. And that's what we learned, that the women just love to be together without the influence of any other guys. It's their day, it's their show. And we took that to heart, and our ladies' participation has now grown. Because guess what? Word has gotten out that the CDGA finally gets it as far as the ladies are concerned. And it also helped that we hired specifically somebody to handle all the female events, and guess what? They weren't a guy. I mean, as rudimentary as that may sound, but they don't even want to have the staff being any men at their events. We were told that. So that was eye-opening to us, and so we treat them like a totally different series and on a totally different day. And as such, we have done just like what you said. We have competitions that are tournament side, but we also have now the social side. So there's a nice fine blend between the two. But as far as now trying to get the juniors, we're leveraging youth on course in a big way in the next few years going ahead. Because to us, that's really where the future begins, and how do we make the CDGA youth membership, as that what we call it, with the YOC benefit, how do we make that more relevant? So we're going to be trying to take it into the schools and through the PE teachers, and ultimately educate the high school golf coaches as how to use a CDGA membership when building your high school program. And that means going to the middle school teachers, the PE teachers, to teach them some form of curriculum of golf, to get them aware of a youth membership or a CDGA youth membership that is YOC, because then the golf coaches can use peer review to look at anyone that might be coming in over their years. So we're trying to connect high school through the schools, because they tell us, you know, how are you going to build your membership? You got to go where the golfers are. Well, how are you going to build junior golf? You got to go where the juniors are. To us, that's where the schools are. So we're going to make an attempt to really try to attach the schools and eventually run them up into a youth on course program. But for us, we have to strip apart our youth on course and rebuild it, because we're focused so heavy right now, because when youth on course started to roll out, every golf course in the world wanted it, because they weren't having the success they're having here post-COVID. So what ended up happening was we were getting all these dots on the map all around Chicago, but the rest of the state basically kind of got ignored. So we have to correct that on our end, and we think that's going to be a way that's really going to drive. And because right now, if we go to Decatur, Illinois, and say, hey, yeah, we've got the CDGA youth membership, they're going to say, yeah, where's the youth on course in our community? Oh, 75 miles is it? So yeah, that's real convenient to go play 9 holes. So we're hindered by our own success pre-COVID that we're now trying to undo. So that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, for us, very simple when it comes to the par 3 and the putting championships, those two specifically. We just have that women's division. You know, so they have the opportunity to play in the overall competition, but also just compete with that small group of women that might be playing in those two events. And then also in Wisconsin, our PGA section is the one that runs all the junior golf. But they've kind of taken, once we started our par 3 championship, they've kind of adopted this, and they run an entire par 3 series for the junior golfers in the state, which seems to be extremely successful for them. Again, we're very fortunate with the amount of par 3 and short courses we have available, but specifically to junior golf, especially at a very young age, getting those kids started, just taking them to the par 3 course and getting them involved in that series has been extremely successful.
And Sam, I know when we talked on the call last week, you mentioned your travel days. You have an option to bring a spouse, as long as not totally involved in the golf competition aspect of it, but just to be there, part of the event. Do you think that kind of drives participation from those women that say, hey, this is a pretty fun thing to do. I want to try this as well.
Absolutely. I mean, for trips specifically, we'll generally get between 5 and 12 spouses that will come along who are not golfers. And when you go to a place like Abandoned Dunes that has a short par 3 course that's available for anyone to play, they will go out and test it. And then a lot of times they will be the ones driving, usually their husbands, but not always, to say, hey, when's the next trip? I want to go to this place and then that place. So we found that pretty effective. And we can certainly still do a lot more from that standpoint. And we're trying, we have one of our kind of social trip competitive, kind of blends across multiple different channels up at Pebble Beach here in February. We're going to commit to doing that for the next several years. And we want to do a putting competition because they have a nice putting course here to try and engage some of the non-golfers. So I think that's a really good point.
Awesome. Last question for you guys. Obviously doing a lot of social events. How have you guys been actively encouraging to kind of move those players? Obviously great to have the social events, but how do you get them to, then participate in, your traditional golf, whether it's just playing 18 rounds at their clubs or playing in your tournaments at the AGA level?
Yeah, I can go first here. Ours happens pretty organically. Like I said, with the 2 days for X Golf, these were actually part of our summer-long series. So these really were qualifiers for a championship. So a lot of those players that played were the ones that are everyday on-course players. But let's say we had somebody who wanted to come and play in the event for the first time. If they would have won that 2-person scramble, they would have earned a spot in our on-course championship at the end of the summer. So that X Golf one, again, specifically is very organic. And then kind of the second one here is with the putting championship. Like I said, we host it at one of the resorts, Geneva National, down at the south side of the state, which is a 54-hole facility. So we have it worked out with them where anyone who plays in that putting championship also has the ability to play one of the 18-hole courses at a discounted rate. So right there, it's, hey, if you're going to come down, you're going to play in the putting championship, you're going to stick around for lunch, have some drinks, you might as well go try a 18-hole course at the same time if you don't do that, you know, on an everyday basis. So really with those two specifically, it just kind of happens organically with how we have it set up.
Well, and I mentioned earlier about the tournament players migrating over. The only thing I would say, trying to get the I guess as you call them, the off-course golfers to come over to the more traditional, and it doesn't happen quite the same percentage going the one way versus the other. But I do notice though that people who have been playing for a long time but never tried a social competition, the barrier of entry is the intimidation factor. It isn't a price point. And I think we forget how casual these really are. But to the guy reading the email on the other side that's never played in a tournament, that is frightening as hell. And you know, they tell us that. So I think as administrators, we sometimes have to remind ourselves that, hey, there's only a few thousand people playing. In our case, we have 112,000 members. So there's still a hell of a lot of people that can still be playing in these, and there's a reason that they're not. And I think they still view it as, well, it's a competition. I'm not good enough because I'm only a 17. No, you're the exact person you want. So.
Yeah, I don't have a whole lot to add as far as the off-course golfers, because again, you know, our focus is on keeping our members engaged, because we know that is going to produce results. You know, I would throw out things like a referral program, incentivize members to bring either non-members into your association or folks who don't participate in any program, traditional or social, in playing those. Those are things that we've kind of looked at and thought about and even tested in the past. How do we get word of mouth to be the one that's going to drive, you know, organic, I think Tom said, you know, that's going to really assist, because right, when you refer a friend to this great product or, you know, piece of clothing or whatever you really love, they're a lot more likely to purchase. So we can do the same thing. You know, how do we use those same strategies for that? I think that, you know, for the most part, as off-course golfers, we want to focus on our members first, and then use them to try and gain new memberships, get new people playing from social to traditional, and vice versa.
Yeah, I mean, I know Mike kind of touched on it working the other direction. Have you guys seen that in, you know, Wisconsin or you know, Northern Cal, where, you know, the traditional golfers are, you know, actually going over to the social side of things more so?
I think you do see that, but I wouldn't say it detracts from traditional programming, right? I mean, the person who wants to play in a high-level competition is going to continue to do that, and they might be willing to dabble into a social thing. Actually, probably maybe my best example is coming up. Our maybe most notable, you know, amateur player, his name's Casey Boynes, he's been around for a long time, won tons and tons of championships, is going on our trip to Hawaii. Why is he going? Because he said his wife wants to go. He doesn't play golf. So he's going, and you know, that works both sides. So I think you've got to think about every player. Don't just say, hey, only the folks who don't want to play in competitions are our market for social programming. It's going to be all your members. It's just figuring out what's the right communication vehicle to try and engage them as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys for
I was just gonna chime in at least once. Being on the software side, you gotta ask. I know we talked about surveys after events. We talked about partnering with other local entities, teams, resorts. Are you guys using any other avenues to promote these events? I know they fill up right away, so you probably don't have to, but email marketing, you know, using existing schedules for promotion. Just wondering if you can touch on that quickly before we finish up.
I'll say real quick, we've wrapped corporate partners into a lot of our social competition series because they now see the activation opportunities. And most notably, Jersey Mike's for our 4-person scramble. So we used, at the time, we were trying to get this thing literally off the ground. I mean, I had golf courses asking me, are you sure you've done this before? Like, is it going to work? And the same thing with the partners. But Jersey Mike's gave us distribution. So we created in-store flyers, brochures, like you could literally take it and sign up with it. That helped us get sold out in the first year. So we used them as a means of telling the story to really the customers that were coming in. To strengthen the brand, though, that we've gone to like companies like Callaway, for example, because they see now these as great opportunities to test product, to go on out and educate, make them aware, literally putting product into people's hands. So now we're starting to wrap golf ball companies into each one of our major series, because you start running out of ideas about what are you going to give away as a tee gift. One thing you do know they need is a premium golf ball. And they love the idea of being treated. They get that little extra special education. They go home, they get on the cocktail tour, and they go, guess what I got to do today? I got fitted for a golf ball. And then they tell the whole story. Well, how'd that happen? Well, I remember at the CDGA. Wow. That's how it happens. So, yeah, we use corporate partners to leverage these social competitions, and it was a great partnership all the way through.
Yeah, kind of the bold points, more like John said. I mean, like I said from the beginning, we run these through Blue Golf like we do any other tournament. So it's right in our schedule. A few of these have been going on for a few years now, so we have the traction where we don't necessarily need to email blast for it. You know, but like our putting championship, our par threes, that's really selling out right when our schedule goes live. But then to add on to what Mike said, we also have partners for these. Adidas sponsors our par 3 tournament, and then a local putter company, Meridian Putter, sponsors our putting championship. And exactly like Mike said, they want to be involved in these non-traditional avenues for golf. Adidas absolutely loves the par 3. They'll come up with a fun new design. They kind of created their own logo for the event, and we'll provide some sort of outerwear and a hat every year. Meridian Putter, the prizes, first place gets a gold putter, a silver putter, a bronze putter, and then they'll also have a tent up there with 10 different models of putters that they have. They'll do putter fittings. They'll allow you to use the putter during the championship as well, if you want. So again, it's relatively easy to find a partnership for these non-traditional golf styles. They want to get involved and get those non-traditional golfers to be a part of their brand as well.
Yeah, NCGA, we have not really gone so far as to take on corporate partners. Just not really something that we're looking to do at this time, but I would add for our trips at least, we create our own travel newsletter. So we're sending it out on, let's say, every other month to engage those folks even further, and then they send it to their friends, get them to sign up. So it's 5,000 members strong, and they get this, and we send the information. They're the first ones to hear about our trips. They love that that speciality. Hey, I get to hear about these things first. I get to tell my friends, and that allows me to kind of get the first head start on signing up. I'd certainly recommend that for any program that you're thinking about starting. People always love to kind of feel that they're special, and that's something that we utilize pretty well for our trips program.
Well, we definitely have some time for questions from the crowd if anybody has on the panel.
A question about membership. So kind of all of your different programs that you're doing, are you only opening those to members of your association? I'm thinking specifically maybe about the putting championship, and then also about those non-golfers who are traveling. How are you trying to, are these events supposed to bring members into the association, add to the value so they want to become members? Is that part of it? Or are you only allowing members to play kind of in those events?
I can say at least quickly on trips, and let Tom talk about the putting, but we do on an occasion allow non-golfers, or excuse me, not non-golfers, non-members to join. We typically try and open up our trips for a month or two for members, and most of the time they sell out. But when they don't, we will say, hey, if anyone wants to bring a non-member into the fold, you're welcome to do that. And we've seen some conversions. I mean, it's not hundreds or even dozens, but it's maybe 10 or 15 folks who have joined over the last couple of years because they want to go to Scotland or Ireland. They might be from out of state. So it's certainly something to do, and we've thought about having a member, non-member, either a tournament program or even trips that would try and engage those folks like you talked about.
Member days for us, we do allow a non-member to come in, but they're going to pay a premium, so you might as well just join. But otherwise, everything else is you have to be a member. And for the social competition, that's where we saw a lot of uptick because the guys would get, okay, you're in, you don't have a membership, get one, and so then peer pressure, and the next thing you know, it's like, I gotta get it, because this team can't get signed up until he completes it. So that was a way early on to see a bit of an uptick. Now again, it's not gonna be thousands, but it's, you know, every little bit helps.
Yeah, for us with the putting championship specifically, we do have to be a member of the WSGA. You know, when we created the par 3 in the putting championship, initially it was created to just give our members and our golfers an alternative format to play. And obviously with the discussion here, especially with that putting championship, you know, we are probably missing a big group of people who are not a part of the WSGA, who coming into this championship, playing in it, would then possibly want to join the association. So that's something we would probably revamp here, rework. But that's also with the upper deck this upcoming weekend is what we're really looking forward to seeing, is just having a lot of our branding out there, you know, providing some discounted membership. All right, if there's somebody there that's literally hitting a golf ball for the first time, they don't know what the WSGA is, you know, that's a way we could bring in new membership. But creating that par 3 in the putting championship from the start wasn't necessarily intended to gain new membership. It was just to kind of provide different options for our current members.
Kind of just to further expand on that, specifically for those of you who run the travel events, can you expand on the demographic of the participants, like the public club members versus the private club members who travel, and maybe the age ranges of the participants who travel as well?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. First of all, I would say that it still skews over 60 years old for us as far as age, but the closer you do the trip to home, the more likely you are to get the younger people, because they're not able to take 8 or 10 days off of work or away from their family to go overseas, or 5 or 6 days, let's say, to go from California over to Pinehurst. But they might be able to take 4 days to go down to Palm Springs or up to Bandon. So I would think about that. Our ladies' participation is upwards of 40%, which for a co-ed event is our highest, unless it's an actual co-ed, his and hers tournament. So that's very strong. We love that about it. And I'd say public and private, it's still probably 50-50. Private clubs already have their own, typically like channel. Their pro will set up a trip and do their own thing. What we're finding, and a lot of the comments I get, are the pros are actually overcharging their members for these trips. They're only bringing, let's say, 12, 16, 20, whereas we're bringing 40, 60, or 80. So we can get the price down lower, which really helps. So they've actually said, I'm not going to go participate at my private club's trip that they're running. I'm going to go with you guys because it's much less expensive. So I think we do have value in numbers. And real quick, I'll just make my shameless plug now. If there's anyone out there who says, hey, we really want to get involved in travel, but we don't have the staffing or the time, I'd love to talk to you afterwards, because we do have the time and the staffing, and we want to partner with other AGAs to go to these different locations and grow even further, because we know there's strength in numbers. So if you're interested, please come and see me at the end.
And to that point, it's funny, we had a trip over to Ireland, and it was over to Northern Ireland, and they met with Sullivan, who's here today. And he said to him, he goes, well, because he said, well, you'd be going to Southern Ireland. And he goes, well, in 2 weeks, we're right back here. And it was either with Rhode Island or Maryland or somebody. He jumped on that trip. So that kind of thing starts to happen. And the reason is because we make it uber convenient. The person literally, as our member said to us at Bandon, people don't understand. All they have to do is sign up and show up. You do everything. We have the access and we get the pricing, because they're also partners of ours in a much more comprehensive way. So to the question, demographically, I would agree with you wholeheartedly. The closer you get, the younger you'll start to see the people going on the trips, and it's more buddy-buddy. The further, the more expensive it gets, the age does go up. I start to see more father-son experiences, as we did out in Bandon. We had a few of those. But we're also being told, too, to start thinking about formulating all-women trips. So that's going to be our next initiative.
Anybody else?
I got a question. Arkansas, we have a big, it's successful that way. We have a ladies scramble that had over 100 women this year, and we had over less than 10 sign up for our state am. But I was just wondering how y'all market it differently through your organization. Do you advertise it as a social tour? Where did y'all start to get that going?
Specifically on women's program?
Yep.
Well, for us, it's unique because we have our the 2 women's golf associations that were in existence prior to the AGA changes several years ago. They had pre-existing programs already started. But we've kind of kept that with a women's newsletter that goes out monthly, specifically talking to women golfers. You know, it's like they want to, again, going back, they want to feel like they are valued and not just lumped in, you know, as part of everyone else. I think that would be very helpful for you guys to, you know, develop that sort of thing with additional communication to ladies only. Now, you might have to go to the clubs and do like a grassroots campaign, go to the who's the women's captain at your clubs, at your private clubs, and get them engaged. That would really help because we know that not everyone reads our emails, right? You know, I think that's pretty common across the board. But I think I would start there. And then as far as just general marketing, I think that's a challenge that everyone's seeing. You know, as far as I think what you said, your state amateurs, like it's more difficult to find female players who might fit a, you know, let's say under a 5.4 handicap index. It's difficult. You know, we have some of the same problems. We can talk to some of my colleagues about what numbers we're seeing with those, but I think the social programming is something, especially as people get a little bit older, they really value because I think they've spent the time with family and building their career, and now like, wow, well, I really just want to enjoy golf for the fun of it, and you really need to kind of think through some of, like you said, your scramble event. You know, we have our own women's, you know, trip that we've been running for 4 or 5 years to Palm Springs. Every year it gets 72 players, so they want to see some of those things that are specialized for them. That's kind of what I would add. Hopefully that's helpful.
Yeah, the only, I mean, and I would agree with a lot of what he said. The other thing that we've done as we really sort of jumped into this, you know, the women's side of the equation, because we inherited the Illinois Women's Golf Association because they were going to disband it. So as a result of, you know, incorporating them into us now, we specifically went out and set up focus groups to really understand and grab some of the key people from the private sector. We looked at age, we looked at tournament play versus travel. We tried to get a solid group to really gain a perspective as to where to go. And I think that was, like, I was like, we really need to do this? Yeah, you really do, because it's different than just trying to put them into the mainstream, if you will. The other thing is, through your local knowledge, try to figure out who are the sneezers and coughers within your organization, who loves your brand. Those are the people you want, because they'll broadcast, you know, your message in the way that you want it, but you got to identify those early on and make them part of the, you know, the charter people in creating this journey, because they feel appreciated that way, they feel valued, and then they really want to play with you.
Awesome. Any other questions? Well, thank you, Tom, Mike, and Sam, for sharing your experiences at your GiA&x. Thank you, everybody, for coming.